As I'm sure most of you have heard by now, it's been announced that Season 4 of Rebels will be the last season for the show, and that Dave Filoni has promised that it'll be unlike anything we've seen before in Star Wars, and that it'll even be a little bit dark, which I think it needs to be in some respect, even with it being on the Disney XD channel. So what could that possibly mean for the fate of the Rebels crew? Well, let's go into it. First, let me just say that I'm really only going to discuss the main Ghost crew here, because at the end of the day, they are what the show is about. Next, let's remember that we do have some clues as to where this could be heading. First, we know that the Ghost will be at the Battle of Scarif, seen at the end of Rogue One. We know both Chopper and Hera were at Yavin Base shortly before that battle begun, and that Hera will be promoted to General. We also know that during the events of Return of the Jedi, Yoda says to Luke that after he's gone, the last of the Jedi will you be. So that means either Kanan and Ezra are no longer Jedi at that point, or Luke is the last one from a certain point of view. And even before this, Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, during the events of Rogue One, talk about bringing Obi-Wan back in the mix, and make it sound as if they no longer have Jedi on their side. Now, before I really get into it, I just wanted to bring this up. A lot of the time people make this really strange argument that if we didn't see it or hear about it in the movies, it can't possibly exist. Meaning, in this particular case, since we never hear or see any of the Ghost crew members in the original trilogy, they must all be gone or dead during this time period. This is a mindset I just don't get for many reasons, not the least of which is the fact that not everything happening in the galaxy, or even happening in the next room if you will, is seen and discussed in these 3 2-hour movies. And yes, sure, the obvious answer here is that no one in the show Rebels was thought of when the original trilogy was being made, so of course they wouldn't be seen or referenced. However, 2 of the most important characters in the entire rebellion, Admiral Akbar and Mon Mothma, are not mentioned or seen in the original trilogy until halfway through Return of the Jedi, and yet no one has an issue with the fact that we never hear or see about them before this, despite again how important they are. And yes, the answer here is once again, George hadn't created them until he started to film Return of the Jedi. My point here is that there's nothing to say that some of the Ghost crew couldn't have survived and be a part of the rebellion all the way through the original trilogy, and I think the most likely candidates for this are Chopper and Hera. In fact, I think the reason the only Rebels reference we get in Rogue One are Hera, Chopper, and the Ghost is because they were a part of the rebellion to the bitter end, and showing them in Rogue One was the safest nod to the fans they could give. Because, and don't hate me if you're a huge Hera fan, I don't think her fate is the most speculated about amongst the Ghost crew, and giving it away that she's alive during this time is not a huge spoiler to most. Next, let's talk about Zeb, and what I'd love to see happen to this character is for him to survive and to perhaps form some type of special unit within the rebellion with Agent Kallus, who maybe I should stop referring to as Agent. The other thing I could see happening for Zeb, and I made this prediction for the Season 3 finale, but I'm going to double down on it now, is for him to give his life to save Kallus at some point. That, in my opinion, is the best way for his character to come full circle. And then of course to honor his friend, Kallus will go on to be one of the greatest heroes of the rebellion, which in turn also brings his character full circle. Next we have Sabine, and I'll say there is absolutely no chance she dies in this final season. They have spent way too much time building this character up and hinting at a grand destiny for her. In fact, I'd be surprised if she isn't a big part of whatever show comes next, which is a topic I'll leave for another video. In fact, you may have noticed in the Season 4 trailer that it was implied that Ezra and Sabine were the 2 main characters of the show, and the others were just kind of along for the ride. I think in this season she's going to be taken under the wing of Bo-Katan and taught how to become the leader of all of Mandalore. Furthermore, I think at some point, probably in the series finale itself, she'll be faced with a choice to help her friends with something, likely that long-planned attack on the Imperial forces on Lothal, or to take part in some battle of the Mandalorian Civil War. And of course she'll pick her people and be forced to live with the fact that something tragic happens to a member of the Ghost crew while she wasn't there. And speaking of tragedy, is that how Kanan and Ezra are destined to end? Can there be a happy ending for these 2? Well, sure there could be, but I don't think there will be. Now, my theory for their end, and the end of the show in general, will be a blend of what I'd like to see happen and what I think will happen. First off, Ezra is not going to die. He is one of the 2 characters, the other being Sabine, that a new young generation of Star Wars fans have grown to love, and he, like Sabine, will be seen again somewhere down the road, again likely in the next Star Wars animated series, though likely neither one will be a main character in that show, but rather will be more like Ahsoka was in Rebels, kind of a supplemental role. And no, just for the record, I'm not implying that Sabine and Ezra end up together and have a daughter named Rey, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be cool. I'm just saying I don't think during the writing process of the sequel trilogy they were like, hey, let's make Rey the future daughter of those 2 kids from Rebels. So do I think Ezra will fall to the dark side then? No, unfortunately I don't, though that is something I would love to see. I think with the death of Maul, there's pretty much a 0% chance Ezra goes dark, at least at this point in his life. Sure, maybe down the road, but not during this last season of Rebels. I also think that at some point, likely the very last episode, Kanan gives his life to save Ezra. How that'll happen exactly is virtually impossible to guess at right now, but that's just how I see it playing out. Now, once upon a time, I thought there was a chance Kanan may renounce his Jedi status and become something like the Bendu, thus allowing Yoda's line in Return of the Jedi still to be true about Luke being the last Jedi. But after seeing the Episode 8 trailer, I think that's not going to happen. Why? Because that, in a sense, may be what the entire new trilogy is about. The Jedi becoming more neutral and balanced, I mean. So there's no chance they're going to show Kanan achieving this years before Luke figures it out. So to sum it all up, I think the series ends with one final confrontation with Thrawn that takes place on Lothal, a confrontation where, I hate to say it, Thrawn will be killed. And my guess would be that he's killed by Hera after Thrawn was responsible for Kanan's death, or for Kanan to having to sacrifice himself. I think the Hera-Kanan love connection is going to be heavily teased in this season, and at one point Kanan will even say to Hera that he will give up being a Jedi for her, which hints at a happy ending for Kanan, one that, again, holds true with what Yoda says about Luke being the last Jedi. However, I don't think Hera will accept this. She's too for the cause at this point, and will reject the idea of him no longer being a Jedi, or that the two of them could somehow have a happy life together while the galaxy is in such turmoil, which will of course break Kanan's heart. And right before Kanan sacrifices himself, Hera will have the chance to ask him, just what do you think you're doing? And Kanan will reply, being a Jedi. So basically the show ends with the breaking up of this family we followed for 4 seasons. Hera and Chopper will stay with the rebellion, more for the cause than ever after Kanan gave his life for it. Zeb either dies, or more likely teams up with Callus in some respect, again maybe to form some elite rebel unit. Sabine is off with her people, learning how to lead Mandalore, and with Kanan gone, Ezra decides to leave the rebellion and stop pursuing Jedi training, and to just follow his own path, though he has no idea where that'll take him, which means that of our 2 main characters, again Ezra and Sabine, one will be lost and one will be found, and this beautifully sets up the next series to come. And yes, I am leaving out one character that I think a lot of people want to know what happened to, that being Ahsoka. But if she is in this last season of Rebels, it'll only be as a tease of something else to come. Now why do I think that? Because this last season should really focus on the conclusion of the journey of these 6 characters, and bringing Ahsoka back might overshadow them in some respect, and it also wouldn't do justice to her either if she's yet again just there to be a supplemental character. When we see Ahsoka again, she will, rightfully so, be in a more starring role. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel about it. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to let me know how you think Rebels will end. Do my predictions sound on target, or am I way off course? Let me know in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. Also, please subscribe to my channel or check out some of my other videos. If you've already done all that, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, then hit the notification button or just follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.